Let's dig into it all now with our roundtable. New York Democratic Congressman Ritchie Torres, USA Today Washington Bureau Chief Susan Paige, New York Times The Argument podcast host Jane Coaston, and pollster and communications advisor Frank Luntz. All right, let's turn to the domestic agenda. Frank, you've seen good news for Biden this past week. He got a major semiconductor bill passed. He's got a deal with Manchin. Manchin's on board with Build Back Better, sort of. What do you think? Does Manchin just give him a lifeline?
I don't think this is significant.
You don't think it's significant?
I have a simple question.
Yeah.
Are Americans better off today than they were 2 years ago? Yeah. Are you nervous about filling your tank up with gas? We know that half of Americans can't do it. 1 out of 5 have to return food when they get to the cashier because they simply can't afford it. That this is too much about Washington and not about the quality of life of the average individual. I know that he likes to argue whether inflation was transitory, or now he's arguing over a recession. The fact is, this sounds Orwellian. Don't argue over the words. If you can't afford not just what you want, but what you need, that is, by definition, a recession, and people are suffering right now.
So you're saying it's not a big deal in terms of the impact on the midterm?
Not only
this is a major bill.
But there's advice to the president, which is don't argue over semantics. That's my job as a language guy.
Right.
Your job.
You're the guy that does argue over words.
Yes, and it's really unseemly for the president to be fighting over the definition when people are genuinely suffering out there.
Yeah, I mean, Jane, that does not seem to be the best argument. Is let's fight over the meaning of the word recession, especially because we may end up, finding out that we are in a recession.
Right, exactly. And this is not the first time that people have quibbled over what a recession is or isn't. We saw that under the Bush administration in 2008, which, as I recall, didn't go well for anyone involved, especially if you were graduating from college in that time. I think that what is or is not a recession should not be dictated by people who are likely to not suffer the brunt of a recession. But I do think that focusing on what the bill can do for regular people, talking about what's affordable, talking about what's not affordable, rather than getting into the concept of inflation, which I think for many people is things cost more than they did the year before, which is a global problem, but can have domestic solutions. And people should be taking it seriously domestically, not just getting wrapped up in the politics of it. The point of politics is to get something done. The point of politics is not the process by which it is done.
President Biden would have presided over 5 landmark legislative achievements, from the American Rescue Plan to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, to the bipartisan gun safety bill, to the bipartisan semiconductor and scientific research and development bill, to the Inflation Reduction Act. That level of bipartisan achievement would have been unthinkable in a period of peak partisanship and polarization. So there's a disconnect between the reality of what Biden has accomplished and the media narrative about his presidency in peril.
But the reality is that people still can't afford gas. And what I'm nervous about is, with this Ukrainian conflict, food prices are going to become even more expensive and even more scarce. The reality for them is that this is legislation. It doesn't affect them from the moment they wake up in the morning until the moment they go to sleep at night. And that's the challenge for the president. He can point to bipartisanship, although Nancy Pelosi always talks about how partisan the Republicans are. In the end, the quality of life of the people that you represent, and you represent them well, their quality of life is suffering.
There's a reason why millions of Americans are increasingly turned off by both parties. Whether that means a third party, well, it never does. But it does mean that people are increasingly irritated by both parties. And if your options are, if you are disappointed with Democrats and you look to the Republican Party, I don't know if you're seeing a lot of answers. I think you're seeing a lot of screaming.
You're more, but you raise a very good point. In the polling that was done by Gallup, more people have a negative opinion over the institutions that run this country than ever before. All-time lows. And it's not just the White House or Congress or Republican or Democrat. It's the courts, the Supreme Court. It's health care. It's doctors. It's everybody right now. And, John, at a certain point, this fragile coalition that we call the United States, at a certain point, it could come apart. I know you make fun of me for being a pessimist. Well, sometimes pessimists are correct. I am pessimistic. I am afraid of credibility, and I think we have to tell people the truth. And that's why I go back to the recession. tell people the truth. If they feel like they're in a recession, they are.
I mean, in Maryland, they supported a guy that literally bussed people into Washington on January 6th and called Mike Pence a traitor as people were charging into the Capitol saying, hang Mike Pence.
Well, it's fascinating to me to watch Trump endorsing some candidates and Pence endorsing others, that you feel like you already have 2024 happening right now. Look, it's the reason why the public believes our democracy is broken. They believe that leadership is broken. And most importantly, they believe that you guys have to get something done. That Republicans and Democrats, it's the one thing that they agree on. Please, Washington, listen to them, learn from them, do something, help them.
On that note, we are out of time.